The stars were quiet above the jungle planet. No ships passed through this part of space anymore. It had been years since anyone even spoke of the Shi'ari Empire. People said it was gone forever, crushed in the last war. What remained was just silence, thick vines, and broken stone. But then the signal came, far across the galaxy. Deep in a human base station, an old machine beeped. A blinking light appeared on a forgotten console. A junior tech officer noticed it by chance. The signal was weak, dusty with time, and wrapped in a strange language. Some thought it was just a leftover echo from the past, but one officer sent it up the chain. It reached the ears of a special unit that handled strange things. That is how Rel was sent. Rel was not famous. He was not high-ranking or loud. He liked to stay quiet and do his work well. His job was to explore unknown places and check if there was danger. He had no idea that this mission would change everything. The name of the planet was Terrell 3. Once a jewel of the Shi'ari Empire, now it was a wild place. Tall trees covered the broken buildings. Long vines wrapped around towers that had touched the sky. Birds with bright wings flew over cracked roads. Nothing here moved the way it used to. Rel landed his small ship on a flat patch of stone. His boots touched the ground with a soft thud. He looked around, scanning with his visor. His helmet showed signs of life, but small and scattered plants, insects, maybe some animals. No large threats. He walked forward, rifle on his back, scanner in hand. He followed the signal, which had grown stronger as he neared the center of the ruins. After walking for 2 hours, he found something strange. A wide staircase led down into the ground, covered in moss but mostly whole. It was hidden under a stone arch with symbols carved across the top. The letters glowed faintly in the dark. They were Shi'ari script, half broken but still readable. His translator whispered a rough meaning into his ear. Chamber of the First Light. Rel stepped inside. The air was cooler below. The lights on his helmet lit the walls, showing images of a tall, graceful race. The Shi'ari had been beautiful beings, with long limbs and shining skin. They ruled with wisdom, or so people said. But in the war, they had lost everything. Rel reached the bottom of the stairs. There, behind a layer of glass and dust, was the source of the signal. A half-broken machine blinked weakly. Wires hung loose. An old text sparked now and then. He moved closer and scanned it. The machine was a transmitter. It had been running on backup power for a long, long time. He touched a button. The screen lit up for just a second. A recording played. A small voice, speaking in Shi'ari. It was the voice of a child. The translator stuttered, trying to find words. The message was short. Help, lost. I want to go home. Rel stood still. The voice repeated once. Then the machine shut off again. A child. Here. He moved his light across the room. Behind the machine was something else, a round pod, covered in green dust and vines. It looked like a sleeping chamber, but smaller. The glass was cracked. Inside was something small, curled up, breathing slowly. He wiped the glass and looked. Again. It was a girl. Not human. Her skin glowed faintly, soft violet. Her eyes were closed, but her chest rose and fell. The stasis field had almost failed, but not fully. She was alive. Rel stared for a moment. Then he knelt beside the pod. He tapped gently on the glass. The girl's eyes opened, wide and bright. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then, slowly, she sat up. Rel pressed the emergency open button. The pod hissed and opened with a soft sound. The girl flinched, unsure of what was happening. Rel took off his helmet so she could see his face. He smiled, trying to show peace. "It's okay," he said softly. The girl looked at him with fear, then curiosity. She said something in Shi'ari. The translator caught only one word. "Home," she said it again. Then she held out her hand. Rel took it gently. She was real. She was alive. And she had been waiting for someone for a very long time. He wrapped his coat around her small shoulders. She leaned against him, tired but calm. For now, she was safe. But Rel knew this was just the start. If she was who he thought she might be, Then he was not just holding a lost child. He was holding the last hope of a fallen empire. And someone, somewhere, had been waiting for her all these years. The jungle air was thick with the smell of wet earth and growing plants. The sun tried to shine through the tall trees but only gave soft light. Rel carried the small girl gently as he walked back toward his ship. She held his hand tightly, and sometimes she looked around with wide, curious eyes. The girl did not speak human words yet. Her voice was soft, and her language was strange to Rel. But she had not stopped saying one word, home. She said it again and again. Rel wanted to understand where that home might be. He named her Ina because it was a short and simple sound. She did not answer when he called her that, but she did not seem upset, for now she was quiet, watching him and learning. The far sight was a small ship. It was not meant for long journeys, but it was fast and easy to handle. Rel set a course to the nearest Shi'ari system. It was a place far from Earth, but it had once been part of the Shi'ari Empire. If anyone knew about Ina, it would be there. Inside the ship, Ina explored slowly. She touched the walls and the seats with her glowing fingers. She looked out the window and saw the stars. She smiled for the first time when a shooting star passed by. Rel watched her closely. He knew this was not just a mission. It was a story of hope. Days passed. Ina began to learn small things. She copied Rel's words, making sounds that sometimes matched his language. She pointed to things and said their names, even if softly. Rel found a small book with pictures and showed it to her. When he pointed to a tree, she repeated a sound that meant tree. When he showed a picture of a star, she smiled and said the word for star in her language. Their connection grew, but the galaxy was not kind. One night, while the ship rested near a gas giant, Rel noticed unusual signals on his radar. Other ships were nearby, pirates or scavengers, maybe. They wanted the child. Rel did not know why. Maybe they thought Ina was worth money or power. He prepared to defend the ship. Ina sat quietly beside him. She held a small crystal Rel had found in the ruins. It glowed faintly in her hands. The pirates attacked at dawn. Their ships appeared like dark birds in the sky. They fired warning shots, trying to scare Rel. Rel stood firm. He turned on the ship's defenses and replied with warning signals of his own. The pirates were surprised. They expected an easy target, not a fighter. Rel's training took over. He flew skillfully, dodging the pirates' fire. Ina held on tight, trusting him after a tense chase. The pirates gave up. They disappeared into the stars. Rel breathed deeply. He looked at Ina, who smiled. For a moment, everything was calm again. He spoke softly to her. "We are safe for now." Ina nodded. She touched her chest and said a new word. It sounded like mother. Rel did not understand, but he felt it was important. As they traveled, Rel learned more about the Shi'ari. They were a proud and kind race. Their empire was once strong and just, but the war had broken everything. The queen had vanished years ago. Many thought she was dead. What if Ina was her daughter? Rel's heart tightened. He promised himself to protect the girl no matter what. One day, while resting on a quiet planet, Rel met a trader named Nash. Nash was friendly and knew stories about many worlds. When Rel showed Ina to Nash, the trader's eyes grew wide. "That child," Nash said, "looks like the lost princess of Shi'ari." Rel's hope grew. He asked Nash about the queen. Nash told the story of sorrow and loss. The queen had disappeared after the war. Her daughter was never seen again. Many believed she was dead or taken by enemies. Rel held Ina close. "We will find her," he said. Softly. Nash warned him. Many dangers waited in the stars. Some wanted the child for their own plans. Others feared the return of the Shi'ari royal blood. But Rel did not listen to fear. He only listened to Ina's silent hope. Each night, Ina dreamed of a shining palace and a woman with kind eyes. She reached out in her dreams, calling softly, "Mom." Rel watched over her, feeling the weight of the mission. The galaxy was wide, but home was closer than they thought. Together, they would find it. Rel set the far sight to fly toward the last known location of the Shi'ari Empire. The stars outside the window moved slowly as the ship jumped through space. Ina sat near the control panel, watching the stars with quiet eyes. She held the glowing crystal close to her chest. Rel felt the weight of their journey pressing on him. This was no simple mission anymore. Days turned into nights. Time passed in silence except for the hum of the ship's engine. Ina was learning quickly. She pointed to buttons and shapes, trying to speak more human words. Rel smiled when she said star perfectly. She tried other words. But home was still the one she said the most. One evening, Rel sat next to her in the small cabin. He showed her a star map. He pointed to the place where he hoped to find the Shi'ari Queen. Ina looked at the map, then back to Rel. She nodded slowly. It was as if she understood. Suddenly, the ship's alarm sounded. A warning light blinked red. Rel jumped to the control panel and scanned the skies. On the screen, small dots moved fast. Other ships were coming toward them. Pirates, Rel said quietly. He did not want trouble. The galaxy was still dangerous in many places, but pirates were the worst. They took what they wanted without care. Rel prepared the ship's defenses. Ina moved closer, clutching her crystal. She looked scared but brave. The pirate ships closed, and quickly, their weapons glowed, ready to fire. Rel's fingers moved over the controls with steady skill. He was a soldier trained for these moments. The far sight jumped forward, dodging laser blasts. The pirates fired again, trying to hit the ship. Rel twisted the controls and used the ship's shields to protect them. Ina whispered a small sound. Rel looked at her. She held the crystal high, and a soft light came from it. The light grew stronger, pushing away the dark space around them. The pirates seemed surprised by the strange glow. Rel smiled. Good job, Ina. Together, they moved through space like a team. The pirates finally gave up and left after the danger passed. Rel let out a deep breath. Ina looked up at him and said something new. It sounded like mother. Rel did not know the meaning, but it made him think. Ina wanted to find her mother. He wanted to help. The journey continued. They traveled from star to star. Sometimes they stopped to rest. At one small station, Rel met old friends and shared stories. But no one knew where the Shi'ari Queen was. The Empire had been lost to time. Ina grew stronger each day. She laughed quietly when Rel showed her how to use simple machines. She learned to eat human food and drink water from a cup. Rel taught her the human way, but she taught him too with her patience and light. One day, Ina showed Rel a drawing she had made. It was a tall woman with a crown. The woman's eyes were soft and sad, but full of love. Ina pointed to the drawing and said, Mom, Rel's heart ached that he promised to find this woman. At a larger space station, Rel contacted a trusted old pilot named Nash. Nash had flown many missions and knew many secrets. When Rel told Nash about Ina, the pilot's face changed. Careful, Rel, Nash warned. The galaxy has changed. People who want power may follow you. The child is important. More important than you think. Rel nodded but did not let fear stop him. He trusted Ina and himself. Together, Rel and Ina prepared for the next part of their journey. They needed to reach a hidden moon where the Queen's last guards were said to live. It was a dangerous place, protected by storms and secrets. Ina rested in the cabin. She looked at the stars and whispered, Home. Rel looked at her and smiled softly. Almost there, he said the journey was just beginning. The far side approached the small space station quietly. The moon below was hidden by thick clouds, and the storms around it raged like wild beasts. Rel's hands tightened on the controls. This place was known for danger and secrets. It was the last known home of the Shi'ari Queen's guards. Landing was not easy. The ship shook as it passed through the violent storms. Rel's eyes focused on the small landing pad glowing faintly beneath the clouds. The engines hummed low as the ship touched down. Rel stepped out, carrying Ina in his arms. The air was cool and smelled like rain. Tall towers surrounded the landing pad, their surfaces shining faintly under the stormy sky. The place looked abandoned but alive with old power. Rel walked carefully toward the main building. He hoped to find someone who could help. The Shi'ari guards were said to be strong, and loyal. If they still lived, they would protect the queen's daughter. Inside the building, shadows moved silently. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures of the Shi'ari Empire's past glory. Rel felt the weight of history pressing on him. He carried Ina close, knowing she was the key to a future no one dared to imagine. Suddenly, strong voices echoed in the hall. Heavy footsteps approached. Rel turned and saw tall figures in shining armor. Their faces were hidden behind smooth helmets. They stopped in front of him, watching carefully. "Who are you?" one guard asked in a deep voice. It was not a question to answer lightly. Rel lifted Ina and showed her to the guards. She looked at them with wide eyes but did not cry. One guard stepped forward. He reached out a hand, but the others stayed ready for battle. Rel spoke slowly and clearly. "My name is Rel. I found her on Terrell 3. She is the queen's daughter. I want to bring her home." The guards looked at each other in silence. Then the tallest one removed his helmet. His face was strong but kind. He said, "We have waited a long time for her." Rel felt hope rise inside him. The guards led them deeper into the building. They moved through halls filled with memories. The walls told stories of battles and loss, but also of courage and love. Ina walked beside Rel, holding his hand. She looked around, touching the walls softly. She saw the pictures of the queen and the empire. Something inside her stirred. At last, they reached a quiet room. The guards stopped and waited. Rel turned to Ina. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. With a small voice, she said the word again, "Home." Rel nodded. The guards opened the door. Inside was a woman. She stood tall, with silver hair and eyes that shone like stars. She wore a simple dress, but her presence was royal and strong. When she saw Ina, her face changed. Tears filled her eyes. Ina ran forward and threw her arms round the woman. "Mom," she said clearly. The woman held her daughter tightly, tears flowing freely. She whispered words of love and comfort. Rel watched, feeling a quiet joy in his heart. The guards bowed their heads in respect. The queen and her daughter were finally reunited after years of pain and waiting. The queen turned to Rel. "Thank you," she said softly. "You have given us hope again." Rel smiled. "It was my honor." As the storm outside calmed, the queen told her story. The empire had fallen in war. The queen had hidden Ina to protect her. Many had searched, but none had found her until now. Rel listened carefully. He knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter. Together, they would face the future. The hidden moon was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engine. Rel stood beside the Farsight landing pad. Ina was close, holding the glowing crystal tightly in her small hands. The storm clouds still rolled overhead, but the air felt calmer now. They had reached the home of the Queen's guards. Rel looked up at the tall walls surrounding the landing area. The walls were made of metal and stone, strong and old. They had protected the Queen for many years. Now, those same walls awaited the return of her daughter. Before they could move forward, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. The guards appeared, tall and strong in shining armor. Their helmets hid their faces, but their presence was clear. This was a place of loyalty and honor. The guards surrounded Rel and Ina, watching every move. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. "You are not from here. Why have you come?" Rel raised his hand slowly. "I mean no harm. I have found the Queen's daughter on a distant planet. I bring her home." The guards did not move. Silence filled the air. Ina stepped closer to Rel, holding his hand tightly. She looked at the guards with brave eyes. One guard broke the silence. He said, "We have guarded the Queen for many years. We do not trust strangers." Rel understood. Trust was earned, not given. He knelt down to Ina's level. "We must show them you are safe. Will you come with me?" Ina nodded. The guards watched closely as Rel gently helped Ina walk toward the main gate. The path was narrow and surrounded by tall walls covered in old symbols. The air smelled of rain and stone. At the gate, the lead guard ordered the others to open the doors slowly. The massive gates creaked and swung open. Inside was a courtyard bathed in soft light. The ground was covered with smooth stones, and tall trees grew along the edges. The air was peaceful here. The guards led Rel and Ina to a large hall. It was decorated with banners showing the Siari colors and symbols of the Empire. The hall felt alive with history. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. The guards moved quickly, weapons ready. Rel and Ina were guided to a secure room. Inside, Ina sat quietly. She looked out the small window, her fingers tracing the glass. The crystal in her hand glowed softly, as if it knew this place was special. Rel paced the room. He thought about the dangers ahead. The queen's enemies might come looking for Ina. The guards were strong, but protection was never certain. A few hours later, a guard returned. He spoke to Rel quietly. The queen wishes to meet the girl. Rel nodded and stood. Ina stood beside him, steady and calm. They were led through twisting halls until they reached a large door. The guard knocked once and opened it slowly. Inside was the queen. Her eyes held a mixture of hope and sorrow. She wore a simple dress, but her presence was regal. When she saw Ina, her face softened. Ina stepped forward and reached out. "Mom," she said softly. The queen's eyes filled with tears. She took Ina into her arms, holding her tightly. The room was filled with quiet sobs of joy. Rel watched from the doorway. His mission was complete. The child and the queen were reunited. The queen turned to Rel. "You have done what many could not." "Thank you." Rel bowed his head. "It was my honor." The queen smiled through her tears. "The empire may be broken, but with her here, hope lives again." That night, Rel stayed in the hall. He heard the queen and Ina talking softly. The past was still heavy, but the future felt bright. The guards stood watch, loyal as ever. They knew the battle was not over, but with the queen and her daughter together, a new story could begin. The next morning, the sky above the hidden moon was clear and bright. The storm that had haunted the place for years had passed. A fresh wind blew through the tall trees, carrying the scent of rain and new beginnings. Rel stood outside the queen's hall, watching Ina and the queen walk slowly through the garden. Ina's small hands reached out to touch the leaves and flowers. She smiled as the sunlight touched her face. The queen watched her daughter with love and hope, but also with worry. The past was never far from her mind. Rel joined them. The queen spoke softly. "We have little time. There are those who still seek to harm us." Ina looked up at Rel with wide eyes. "Who?" she asked. The queen's face grew serious. "Old enemies. Those who want to keep the empire broken. They fear the return of the royal blood." Rel nodded. He understood the danger better now. The galaxy was full of shadows, and some of those shadows followed them here. Later that day, Rel met with the queen's guards. They spoke quietly in a room filled with maps and star charts. The queen needed to plan carefully. The guards were ready to defend their home, but they knew the fight would be hard. One guard said, "We cannot trust the galaxy. News spreads quickly, and many will come looking for the princess." Rel placed his hand on the map. "We need to move carefully, protect the queen and Ina, and find allies." The queen agreed. She had friends still loyal to her cause scattered across distant worlds. They could help, but first they had to be found. Days passed as Rel and the queen worked to prepare. Ina learned more about her past and the people who once loved her. The queen told stories of the old empire, of peace and strength before the war. Ina listened with wide eyes. She wanted to be strong for her mother and for their people. One evening, Rel sat with Ina beside a small fire. The stars twinkled above them. Ina held her crystal, and a soft glow lit her face. "Rel," she said in her gentle voice, "will we be safe?" Rel smiled and nodded. "I will protect you both, no matter what." Ina looked up and smiled. For the first time, she seemed at peace. But the calm would not last. That night, shadows moved outside the walls. Hidden figures watched the queen's home. They whispered in dark voices. The enemies had found them. Rel and the guards stood ready. The queen held Ina close, her face full of courage. The battle would come soon. But together, they were stronger than any shadow. The night was quiet but tense. Rel stood on the walls of the queen's home, watching the stars. His eyes searched the dark beyond the walls. The enemies had come close. He could feel their presence like a cold wind. Inside the hall, the queen held Ina close. The small girl slept peacefully, her crystal glowing softly. The queen whispered a prayer for her daughter's safety. Her heart was full of hope, but also fear. Rel's thoughts raced. The time had come. They could no longer hide. Suddenly, alarms rang loud. The walls shook as enemy ships attacked. The sky lit up with bright beams of light. The battle had begun. Rel ran to the control room. The guards took their positions. The queen stood tall, her eyes shining with courage. The Farsight joined the defense. Rel flew the ship skillfully, dodging attacks and protecting the base. Ina woke up. She looked outside and saw the flashes of light. She held her mother's hand tightly. The enemies landed troops. The guards met them bravely. The battle was fierce but full of hope. The Queen's Guard fought with strength and honor. Rel and the guards worked as one, defending their home. Amid the battle, Ina's crystal shone bright. It sent waves of light that pushed back the darkness. The enemies hesitated, afraid of the glowing power. Rel saw the chance. Ina, hold it high. He shouted. Ina raised the crystal, and a warm light spread across the battlefield. The enemy ships faltered and then retreated. The sky grew calm again. The wall stood strong. The queen and her daughter were safe. The queen smiled at Rel. You have saved us all. Rel nodded. We saved each other. Days passed. The hidden moon healed from the fight. New allies arrived, ready to help rebuild the empire. The queen's people began to gather, hopeful once more. Ina learned about her future. She was not just a child lost, but a symbol of hope for many. Rel stayed by their side. He felt proud and grateful. His journey had changed lives. One morning, Ina ran to the queen and shouted, Mom, I'm home. Tears of joy fell from the queen's eyes. She held Ina close and whispered, Welcome home, my daughter. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that day. A new dawn had come.